Hi everyone, Pam Gregory, astrologer. I'm going to be speaking to you today about the second half of August and the new moon that we have coming up in Virgo on the 27th. But we really are entering a very powerful time in the year. I've been talking since January about, if you look back to my themes for 2022, I was talking about this period even then, how we're really starting to build to a crescendo in these last few months of the year, particularly September, October, November, I think are going to be huge for the world. And part of the reason, there are many, many astrological reasons I'm saying that, which we'll get into as we move through the next month or two. But one of the reasons is that the two very dominant aspects we've had over the last 2 to 3 years are coming back closer to exactitude. For instance, Eris in Aries, square to Pluto in Capricorn, we've had all through 2020, 21, 22. And Eris is the sister of Mars. She's warrior energy, female warrior energy. And she really fights against elitism. She fights against inequality. She wants everybody in society to be heard, nobody excluded. And so she's very much about freedom, human rights, etc. But she's running up in that square against Pluto in Capricorn, which is about power and top-down power and control of large organizations, corporations, governments, and that's the clash. Very similar with Saturn square to Uranus. We've had that all through 2021, 2022, and that also is coming back. It will become an exact square again by degree in early October, but we'll be feeling it very strongly through the second half of September into really mid-November. It's coming back to 18 degrees of Aquarius Taurus, very important degree of the fixed. So Saturn is about the past, it's about government, it's about rules and regulations for your safety. It's very much about centralization of policy, whereas Uranus is about the future. It's about freedom. It's about not obeying the rules. It's about decentralization, grassroots up, communities, etc. So again, this is the clash. So if you had to take those two very dominant aspects that have been so long running, that are coming back much closer and therefore will feel them more strongly in our lives, it really is about individual rights and freedoms versus the power of the state. So be aware that is a very strong backdrop to anything else we're experiencing at this time. Uranus is very highlighted all of this year, partly because it is in Taurus, and that is the same sign as the North Node. And indeed, it was exactly conjunct the North Node on the 31st of July and the 1st of August, but it will remain, it's only 2 degrees away now, and it will remain operationally conjunct the North Node really into February, March next year. So this is about quantum leaps in our evolution. And Uranus transits show us where we have already outgrown something. We have already outgrown something, because the urge with Uranus is always to get us to a higher state of being, to move us forwards, but it doesn't happen gradually or in a linear way. It happens in jumps. And because it's conjunct the North Node, this is our future collective direction. So it's very clear what the purpose of Uranus transits are. So it's very much an inner process as well. Sometimes we can have very shocking events on the outside, but it's also very much an inner process of these evolutionary jumps, which many, many of us feel that we're experiencing right now. And indeed, all of us are experiencing. Actually, it's just some people feel it more than others. So another very powerful time for Uranus happens on the 24th of the month. And this is when Uranus becomes stationary retrograde. Whenever a planet becomes stationary to change direction, it's like a huge ship slowing stationing and then gradually moving off in another direction. But Uranus is staying at that 18 degrees from now, really all the way through until early October, drilling down on 18 degrees. 18 degrees was where it also met Mars and the North Node at the beginning of August. So this 18 degrees is very, very highlighted of the fixed signs, because when it comes back to square Saturn, as I say, in early October, again, it is Saturn in Aquarius, fixed sign, square to Uranus in Taurus, fixed sign. 18 degrees of the fixed signs. You have anything between 17 and 19 degrees of the fixed signs, you are going to feel a restlessness, an intensity, a desire for change, or have change imposed on you from the outside. That's how it tends to work, and often comes in really fast out of the blue because Uranus is speedy. So those few days around the 24th are going to see strong Uranian energy. And again, this can manifest as earthquakes, volcanoes, extreme earth events. It can be political or financial earthquakes. It can be shocks, surprises, sudden radical news, truth, awakening. Big, big, big time. This is the planet of truth and awakening. And again, these are more internal processes for people. Uranus is also the planet to do with linked to aviation. And because of the square to Saturn, Saturn is limitation. So have we seen some disruptions in aviation in recent times? Yes, we have. Lots of disruptions at airports, cancellations of flights, etc. Ground crew of Lufthansa going on strike. 1,000 flights had to be cancelled that day. We are likely to continue to see aviation disruptions through the rest of this year. Equally, Uranus is also about electricity, power. It's about the internet. And so, again, we may see some power cutouts or even internet cutouts as we move through the next few months. But know that the purpose of this is to move us from Saturn to where we've been in our state of being, that's much more the sort of tangible 3D reality, into a higher state of being. That's what this whole square is about, and its conjunction, Uranus' conjunction to the North Node. So just know that it has purpose. It's interesting if I look at the Sabian symbol for 18 degrees of Taurus. I've mentioned Sabian symbols in the past. They're very beautiful, often very descriptive of what is unfolding. And they were channeled back in the 1930s, I think, by a medium called Elsie Wheeler. And they have been used by astrologers ever since. And with Sabian symbols, you have to kind of round up to the next degree to read them. So if I look at 19 degrees of Taurus, the symbol for that is a new continent rising out of the ocean. A new continent rising out of the ocean. Now, I think that's really interesting because Uranus in Taurus, Uranus is new, and Taurus to do with the earth, the land. It's a very good symbol for new earth, actually, Uranus in Taurus. So is this suggesting that this will be literally a new continent, new land emerging from the sea? Or is it much more of a metaphor for new earth that, of course, is already established in frequency? It's not a place, it's a frequency. I don't know. Or is it both? I don't know. We will have to wait and see, but I think that's very interesting. Okay, so and the new moon, let us now start to look at that. The new moon happens on the 27th of August. It happens at 1:16 a.m. Pacific and 9:16 a.m. UK time. So let me share the screen and take you through this chart. Okay, so here we can see the new moon, 4 degrees, 3 minutes of Virgo. See where that falls in your chart, 4 degrees of Virgo. You can download a free birth chart from my website if you don't know, and then if you go to the link below this video, you can buy a 2-part video series which will explain all that you need to know about where this falls for you, which house area, and what it means for you, and how to find the meaning for every update I ever do. So it's a really wonderful beginning to your astrological journey. So this is the new moon, and Virgo if you think of the glyph for Virgo, it's the sheath of corn. And so Virgo is often very linked to grains in the Northern Hemisphere. We're starting, as we get towards September, move towards our harvest. So it is very linked to literally harvesting our food, our grains. And that theme around grains is quite highlighted because I haven't drawn her in here, but Saturn is actually directly opposing the asteroid Ceres, that is linked to agriculture, particularly grains and harvests, Ceres being directly opposed to Saturn there. So that is again suggesting some disruption in our food supplies from time to time. And, I've talked about that a great deal, and just be aware and plan accordingly. I think it is also not just about harvesting food. I think it is harvesting spiritually. It's gaining the harvest of the work that we have put in spiritually. I think it's very linked to that. And also, Virgo is the planet linked to habits, daily habits, and it's very much ruled by Mercury, the planet of the mind. So this is where our mind, this negative self-talk can rumble around our heads of, not good enough, not young enough, not pretty enough, not smart enough, can kind of rumble through our days, and it doesn't help us get anywhere at all. So this new moon in Virgo can help us birth some new habits, daily habits around our thinking, to replace those negative thoughts, those negative habitual, continually running around the hamster wheel, to something much more positive. I am abundant. I have everything I need in life. I live in a world of magic and miracles. Whatever you choose, and you can have several, stick them on Post-it notes all over your kitchen, and be sure to replace the negative with the positive. Great time to do this. Virgo is the sign par excellence for detailed analysis, absolutely getting the T's crossed and the I's dotted, absolute precision, getting everything right with the facts and the information. And this is interesting because I think we're going to be looking at a lot of information that we want to sift through for two other reasons in this. We will see here that actually Mars here at 4 of Gemini, I'll come back to talk about that in a moment, is trying to Mercury. So this energizes the mind. It also energizes the mind because Mars is in Gemini, ruled by Mercury, sign of the mind. And so we're going to have a lot of mental activity and a lot of information, as I say. And what's that information going to be about? Well, I think Mars in Gemini has the potential to be very quick mentally. It can also be witty, but it can also have a sense of irritability or frustration coming through. And we may even see this expressed as anger on social media, a lot of flare-ups on social media, because Gemini is one of the signs linked to social media along with Aquarius. Or it can be even anger at certain media around the facts and the information. I think this is going to be a really big theme, because Mercury, which is the ruler of Virgo, of this new moon, and also the ruler, as I say, of Gemini, is on the world axis. It's at 1 degree of Libra, 1 degree 17 of Libra. And remember, 0 of the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, give or take 2 degrees either way, is the world axis. So whatever information and facts we are, through our detailed analysis, Virgo, bringing to the fore, they are going to be very important for the world, because Mercury is on the world axis. It's going to be, in front of the public in a bigger way than normal. And there may even be some legal implications to that, because the 2 signs that are connected to the law are Libra and Sagittarius. So we will see what unfolds. But what I also want to mention before so much to say here, is going back to Mars in Gemini. Mars has just entered Gemini, as we can see. It is going to stay in Gemini for 8 months. And that's very unusual, very unusual. It's because of a major retrograde that is going to be happening with Mars starting at the end of October. But Mars will stay in Gemini essentially through till, I think it's March 25th next year. So this is going to energize our mind. And this is going to be very interesting because Mars likes to focus. It has a single pointed focus. It's very, very good at that. But Gemini is mutable air. So if you can imagine, if you shine a light through a prism and it scatters, it's divergent energy. Gemini tends to be very divergent in its expression. Now, that can be wonderful because it's extremely creative. I've got Gemini friends who are genius level creative, who can multitask brilliantly, sort of come up with a creative idea and turn it into very different forms here and there. You know, I really respect their ability creatively, but it can make you scattered. Whereas Mars is trying to pull it together. So just think about this as we move through these months, because there's going to be a lot to be scattered about. There's going to be a lot of information, a lot of drama, a lot of color as we build to our crescendo. It's very easy to be over there, over here. But Mars is asking us to have mastery of our mind to come back to one-pointedness. At the end of the day, one-pointedness is what it's all about in terms of our mastery. It's super important. And I think what is also very exciting here, just thinking about the Sabian symbol I mentioned of a new continent rising out of the ocean, you will see here that Mercury at 1 of Libra is very, very tightly opposite Manwe, Kuiper Belt object, dwarf planet, Manwe, M-A-N-W-E, at 104 of Aries. Now, Manwe is also on the world axis, first degree of the zodiac, new beginnings. And these Kuiper Belt objects are just fascinating for me, because I think our regular, what I call bread and butter planets that we've known for so many years, they almost operate as Virgo does, almost at the day-to-day level of coming and going, our family, our work, our habits, how we spend our days and our thinking. But it's almost more at the personality level, if you like. Whereas what I find really exciting at the Kuiper Belt object level, this is quantum consciousness. This is a leap. This is where we really start to have a sense of spiritual connection together at that high level of consciousness. We have a spiritual connection to Gaia, a spiritual connection to Source, a spiritual connection to all that is, a sense of spiritual purpose in our lives that we don't always have at our day-to-day level. Indeed, I think there are many people who have a sense of meaninglessness. They get up, they go to work, they come home, they watch Netflix, they go to bed, they get up, there's an all-pervading sense of meaningless very often at that separated individual level. But what the Kuiper Belt of objects are teaching us, or going to teach us increasingly, now we've discovered them in the last 20 years or so, is how to have that sense of spiritual purpose, of quantum evolution, jumps, and our connection with each other, holding hands across the world to create something really beautiful. And to remind you of the symbolism of Manwe, and again, I'm quoting from the research of Kelly Hunter. She did the research. I'll put her website underneath here, so I'm very much using her work. Manwe is described as the highest intelligence of divine source, the closest to the mind of God. Spiritual dedication of light over dark, and very much connected to world renewal, new continent rising out of the ocean, new earth, new consciousness. Manwë in myth, together with Vada, his wife, created the cosmos. Are we seeing a whole new creation of a whole new world, earth, consciousness moving forwards? I think this is really exciting. They are giving us, the Kuiper Belt objects are giving us a very different vision going forwards of our future, which is not the gloomy, doomy one that is everywhere today. And that is really inspiring. Something else that's very important, which I haven't mentioned before, but I think it's really, really important for us to understand, is the square here between Saturn at 20 of Aquarius and Uranus at 18 of Taurus is, as I say, going to become tighter into early October. So they're both going to be at 18 of their signs. But Uranus has a lower degree. It's at 18. Saturn is at 20. So what that means is, as the personal planets go around in their faster orbits, the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, etc., they come into aspect with Uranus first. They come into conjunction, square, opposite, whatever, trine. So there's a sense of change and surging forwards and breakthrough. And then a short time later, could be hours, days, whatever, weeks, depending on the speed of those personal planets, they then hit Saturn, which is the reality check. Oh, we thought we had the breakthrough. Oh, we thought we saw truth. Oh, we thought there was change. But then we hit the reality check, or the wall, or the stoppage of some kind. I want you to be really aware of that, because ultimately Uranus wins in these battles. Uranus wins because it's the planet of the future, it's the further out planet, etc., the planet of change. But we're going through a period, and this may last even into November, and I'd say absolute worst case kind of February, March, when Saturn leaves Aquarius totally and moves into Pisces. It may even be that we just keep hitting the buffers, just keep hitting them. Yeah, are we there? Is there a breakthrough? Well, are we going to see change? No, just hit something else, some kind of control mechanism. So I want you to be aware of that, because that's part of the astrology, and it doesn't mean that Uranus isn't going to win the day, because it is, because it absolutely is. And then we get the real push through, I think, in the last few months of this year, may even be very late in this year and into the early couple of months of next year. And then we start to see change. So, but the other thing I wanted to point out is Venus here at 19 of Leo is actually forming a T-square, or fixed signs T-square, to Uranus and Saturn. And if Venus at 19 of Leo is falling in your 5th house or your 7th house of relationships, again, check your chart, this can bring in a kind of push-pull around relationships. Do you want to stay in the security, the stability of the relationship, or do you want freedom and independence? It can be that kind of a seesaw. And it can bring in some volatility in stock markets, though I think that could be more into September, October, but also changes in currencies. Venus is linked to currencies. The other thing I'd just like to mention, I'll stop sharing my screen here, but obviously there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of charts for me to look at, so I can't kind of catch them all. But I mentioned, I think, in the last video that the moon of the EU is being very highlighted by this 18 degrees of the fixed signs. If we look at Canada, and the chart I'm using for Canada is the 1st of July, 1867, 0 hours, i.e. midnight in Ottawa, then that 18 degrees of the fixed signs is picking up Saturn. Saturn in the Canadian chart at 17 of Scorpio is the midheaven ruler. So the midheaven in a country's chart is the government or the leader. The new moon at 4 degrees of Virgo is conjunct the Mars in that Canadian chart. It's actually at 5 degrees of Virgo. It's conjunct the Canadian Mars, and Mars is the chart ruler for the Canadian chart because it has an Aries ascendant at 16 degrees of Aries. of interest, transiting Chiron is right on that ascendant too. So the Canadian chart is quite activated at the moment. So what all of that means is there is likely, particularly as we tip into September, be more challenge or a confrontation, if you like, around leadership and government in Canada, and possibly even a change of identity, the ascendant for Canada. We will see what unfolds. The other country that is being aspected, triggered by this 18 degrees of the fixed signs that I've talked so much about, is for China. That chart is the 1st of October, 1949, 1515 local time, Peking. The mid-heaven ruler is Pluto at 17 degrees of Leo, 17 degrees of the fixed signs. So again, this is the government, the leadership of China is being challenged because this Uranus-Saturn square could throw curveballs, in the Canadian situation and curveballs in the Chinese situation. So again, we will wait to see what unfolds. We're going to see an awful lot of speed, changing events, color, drama. We are just on the precipice of that kind of turbulence, let's say. So if we come back to our new moon in Virgo, very linked to the mind, ruled by Mercury, we look at Mars in Gemini, ruled by Mercury, energizing that other sign of the mind. We are going to have an awful lot to potentially distract us. Look over here, look over here, look over here. Another really scary thing over there. But if we allow that to happen, our energy is going to get very scattered. We're going to give our power away to the people, the circumstances, the events on which we are focusing, because that's how quantum reality works. I said in a previous video, your focus is food. Your focus is food to energize what you absolutely don't want more of. It's really simple. And so we have to be disciplined enough in our mind and in our focus, Mars in Gemini, to bring that all back and say, yeah, there's 10 tons of drama out there, but I am going to have the mastery and the discipline to turn inwards where I have a one-pointed focus. I have a one-pointed focus on my breath, dropping into the heart, imagining I'm breathing in love, and I'm breathing out love to my heart's toroidal field, which, by the way, is the biggest toroidal field for your body. It's way bigger than the toroidal field of your brain. I'm going to breathe in love through my heart, and I'm going to breathe out love to the world. And if enough of us do that across the world, doesn't matter if we speak Egyptian or Ethiopian, it doesn't matter. The language barrier doesn't matter. This is an energetic, this is a frequency, coming, a convergence, coming together, building a wave, building a momentum to say, we want more love in the world. So just imagine that. Imagine that you're holding hands digitally and globally with all of those other like-minded people who want the same. And remember what Dr. Joe Dispenza says, what Dr. Bruce Lipton says, what Dr. David Hawkins said in all his work. It takes a tiny percentage of us, 1 or 2%, to actually affect the collective for the better. But as long as we're focused on the stuff we don't want, it acts like a ball and chain to delay the much better world and earth that we could be living in. So see yourself as an accelerator of new earth, a creator, that you're focusing only on what you want to create and see in this world. And be absolutely tough with yourself. No, we're not going over there. You know, spiritual blinkers. No, we're not going to look over there. Yep, really tempting because it's really dramatic, but we're going to have the discipline to bring ourselves back. And then if you turn inwards, it's so simple. It's so simple. There aren't 1,000 things to focus on. There's really one thing, that single pointed focus. And that's what we've got to learn. And that's partly what this new moon is about too. I hope that's helped you. We seem to say things that I don't plan towards the end of these videos, but maybe they're the most useful things I can say, actually, beyond the astrology. So I hope it's been helpful for you. If you'd like more information about my books, my teaching videos, my long monthly newsletter, just check out my website, pamgregory.com. Don't forget to set a new intention at this Virgo new moon. And, God bless. We are going into the most exciting time of human evolution that I think we've ever been through all of our lifetimes, and feel inspired by that. Not daunted, inspired. We're on our way. God bless.